Welcome, my 269 nice subscribers. Everyone who has not given up on AEW yet and is reaping the rewards of your loyalty. And to those of you who like watching late reviews, welcome to my review of AEW Full Gear 2022. Let's begin. So I'm gonna start with 0 Hour, the pre-show. And of course, it has Eddie Kingston facing off against a Japanese talent. It has the fun stuff, but I think here it's more substantial than the previous 0 Hours we've had. Since they all played to stories, we actually have like a Japanese legend showing up to fulfill like one dude's dreams. We have the tournament match that I think the goal is to put over two of AEW's pillars. And we have a fun match that's a bit minor on the story side. The best friends and the factory do have an encounter, but it's just a minor thing, and sadly the factory's gonna end up in catering or on dark. I mean, if they manage to get themselves constantly on TV after this match, after they showed what they can do, this one will mean more, but we've yet to see that. Let's see if they can at least like manage to secure Rampage. But yeah, the first match is the Best Friends versus the Factory. So the match starts with just 4 members of the Best Friends. So that's Trent, that's Chuck, Rocky Romero, and Orange Cassidy. Danhausen shows up a little bit later against QT Marshall, Nick Comoroto, Cole Carter, Lee Johnson, and Aaron Solo. So this is like a fun, crowd-pleasing match, and that's coming from both sides. The story is simple. Best Friends are a man down since Danhausen doesn't show up until near the end. They get some fun stuff off, like a simple just like 4-corner like punch spot where they like take turns at punching this dude in the head. There's like the multi-man grapple fest where it's just like an orgy of grapples. The 4-man Best Friend group was successful at the start, but are overpowered by the sheer numbers of the Factory. And the Factory are no slouches in this match. They looked pretty good. They were entertaining as hell. These guys should be on TV, especially for that mock hug spot that the Best Friends do. But with this time, like, QT in the middle with all of the Factory members hugging him. And so then Danhausen eventually shows up to save the day. He brings his, like, indie gimmick with the teeth, with the spike, the one that Jim Cornette liked. And yeah, I've never watched this guy like wrestle a match with this gimmick. Didn't really watch him at all in the indies. But this is pretty cool. It's like a Finn Balor type, but more entertaining and versatile. Not very high up in the card, but he can make more of an impact than what Finn Balor used to do, even before his push was derailed. Yeah, the possibilities are endless with this guy. Like in the mid card, you can have a story with him and Hook, have this thing be uncontrollable, and yeah, glad to see Danhausen not be a jobber. But what I don't like is that Danhausen had to pin Nick Comoroto. I mean, the teeth was very devastating, but a boot to the face to pin a dude the size of Nick Comoroto, not very good at all. There were 4 other more pinnable dudes like right outside the ring. It could have been Cole Carter instead. Just saying. But I guess Comoroto was somewhat protected since he was orange punched before the whole Danhausen thing. But really, there are 4 more pinnable dudes. Even the leader of the faction is like ultra pinnable. So yeah, top 3 spots of the match. Number 3 is the punch spot. Number 2 is the finish. And number 1 is the factory hug spot. So this is a TV undercard pay-per-view opener level of match. Love the Danhausen character change. I love just how fun it is, how it opens the show. And I love that the Factory get to make an appearance. So yeah, after this is Ricky Starks versus Brian Cage for the semifinals of the AEW Championship Tournament. It's a rushed thing, but so far it's been able to elevate Ethan Page and Ricky Starks by being paired off against either monsters or just like extremely talented in-ring workers. And this match, it's just like about 11 minutes or so, but it's like compact, filled to the brim with like all of the high impact like wrestling moves that we want, with not much time wasting that we get in the main event later. It also has like a backstory as well as a main story that we go with, which is Ricky Starks' bracket of monsters. Because the dude has to face off against Brian Cage after Lance Archer on Rampage. And the result is very predictable. Like just seeing the bracket, seeing how it was structured. It was obvious from the start that this was going to be the final. We were always going to have the two dudes who were great on the mic and also great in the ring to end up in the finals. It would be fucking mismanagement or fucking just stupid if Ricky Starks lost this. But the only thing missing here maybe is that the build is a bit lacking. Brian Cage has lost on TV for like how many straight weeks before having a win against Dante Martin. And he's lost so many matches on TV against like the bigger, more popular talent that I think a flash roll-up wouldn't have hurt. It could have protected Brian Cage. And I don't know, like post-match beatdown, have Ricky Starks be more of an underdog. Yeah, bit of a problem with the finish. But the match itself, like, again, compact with all of the high-impact moves. I was surprised that both these dudes were, like, the same height. Ricky sold his ass off on offense, and the way he sold the kickouts were just the best, especially to his spear. I like the way that Brian Cage worked on Ricky's back. It's very natural with his moveset. It's nice to watch a big dude use power moves, unlike trying to wrestle like Manabu Soya from Noah. But yeah, the match culminates to like this small man attempting to Rochambeau the bigger dude. There's some struggles. Ricky Stark's back has been worked on. Cage fucks up and then opens himself to be overpowered after an F5 attempt into the Rochambeau for the win. Ricky Starks advances. So this is like a TV main event, pay-per-view undercard match. Could have used a bit more time for the drama. It should have made the main show over one specific one with Jade Cargill. Okay, so for the final match of 0 Hour, we have Eddie Kingston versus Jun Akiyama. So this should have been on the main show, like based on name value alone. We have Japanese legend Jun Akiyama against his number one fan, and it's on the pre-show. Eddie Kingston is like upper mid-card, and he's on a pre-show. This would have been better if it was on instead of like, again, the Jade Cargill match, or even, you know what, the TNT title match. This was better than that. Like, everything in 0 Hour was better than those matches. Not saying that they're bad, but let's get to that when we get there. This was just a fucking Japanese wrestling match. This was the closest to Noah that we'll ever get. The style. This, like, has all of, like, the characteristics of one. It was slow, we had lockups, we had stiff shots. Eddie lays it all on Akiyama's chest. It does get to a point where it gets like too slow, too much lying down, too much selling. It was a bit late when I watched this, so I was about to fall asleep, but thankfully the match picks back up when they try to like do some one-upsmanship with some exploders. Even with this, I didn't feel like the match was enough. I didn't feel like they were doing enough, but the finish was just perfect. Eddie, after weakening Akiyama, lets him stand up, hits him with a back fist. There was a look of respect. Eddie wins 1-2-3. So yeah, all good for Eddie Kingston. He won a match against like his hero, his childhood hero. This match, not being the most athletic, could have used more story behind it. Maybe a couple of weeks build would have been cool. Maybe Eddie showing up in DDT would have been nice. But yeah, without that story to like this pretty static match, it's like a TV main event, pay-per-view undercard match. So yeah, that was an awesome 0 Hour, more substantial. Could have been better given more time and build. But yeah, looking back at other 0 Hours, it might be the best. And again, definitely a lot of these matches would have worked better in the main card. So yeah, let's move on to the main card. So for the main card of Full Gear, I was surprised that one of the best built feuds, longest running, maybe like 2 pay-per-view cycles now. And it's also like a special stipulation match. It's like the only one. And it's on first. Doesn't make sense. A lot of other matches could have started off the show, like the Darby Sting versus Jarrett and Lethal match, which was like an opener rivalry, not very important. It has the biggest star, but I mean, in quality of the feud, as well as their capabilities, and like it's like pretty normal stipulation. It's a no DQ match. That should have opened first, or you know what? Another match that would have done well opening the show first would have been like any of the 2 undercard women's matches. The one with Nyla and Jade, or the one with Saraya and Britt, would have been responded to better if they were put here. Hell, even the TNT title match. And I'm gonna get to that. Having this open followed by maybe the best match or the second best match of the show, which is the Trios Championship, not a very good choice. It heightens the crowd's expectations and it sets up the second half for failure. Because this one just had everything. Like I said, the long-built feud, Christian healing up on Jungle Boy's family for like months. And just like the twists and turns, the betrayals that this feud has taken, this doesn't deserve to start the pay-per-view. This should be like third to the last or even semi-main. It's that fucking good. I like how it started with an almost like action movie sort of fight. A lot of like luchador style counters and Jungle Boy actually like living up to his name. He does some jungle shit. Like he's thrown to the cage but then he like jumps onto the cage and uses it to like set up for a dropkick. This is the most jungle thing he's ever done ever. And it's coming like at the end of his like jungle phase. But of course the match moves on to like the David versus Goliath storyline. They leaned on it a bit too much. Jungle Boy gets beaten up too much, I feel like. That it's almost not believable that he's able to win the match. I feel like they make Luchasaurus look like a beast too much. Like the only reason he ceded a bit of control was because of Christian Cage trying to interfere. And when he ceded control, it wasn't very long till he took it back. And my god, the production team in this match was at their like 100% brain capacity. Since we got like a couple of good shots of Jungle Boy getting lawn darted to the cage, this cuts Jungle Boy and then there's this like other shot when Jungle Boy is like stuck between the cage and the ring because there's a lot of like cage utilization here. There was like a short period of just Luchasaurus throwing Jungle Boy through all of the sides of the cage. And then the dude gets stuck in between like the cage and the ring. Fucking great visual. And as for Christian Cage's interference, it's him trying to use a key to get in the cage. Luchasaurus goes to help him out as he's being pulled away by a ref. But why even go? But what this establishes is that AEW cage rules, no ring out. You still have to pin your opponent in the ring. And another reason for this to happen is for Luchasaurus to bring in some weapons that will eventually lead to his downfall. Like this is Chekhov's gun moment right here. And yes, to all of you WWE fans who say that you're not following the rules, if you're out of the cage, you're supposed to win. No, that's not how it works here. You don't win a match by being a pussy in AEW. And when they get back in the ring, it gets more even. We get the bombs between both wrestlers. And we pretty much get most of the top spots of the match. Like this chair-assisted destroyer by Jungle Boy. And then he's chokeslammed on the same chair. And then it's followed by an avalanche slide spread that Luchasaurus himself puts himself in. So yeah, we get elements of like the big dude going for too much. This lets him down and then he pays for it. The climax of the storytelling is when they both like sit up in front of each other. We get the "you are my best friend" shouts to the same effect. And this leads to like bloody slaps from Jungle Boy. And like for me from here, this should have been it. This should have been where Jungle Boy finally had like full control. The pile driver that follows, I think, was unnecessary. It sort of hampered his babyface comeback. It doesn't go well with like the whole flow that the match is trying to go for at this point. And like this is the only thing here that feels like it's just a move. It was done just to be done. For me, this should have set up for the finish. I think it would have been better if like right after the slaps, we go right to the finishing sequence, which is like Jungle Boy setting Luchasaurus up for the table dive. And then he dives from the top of the cage, flying elbow that I think looks like it just tags Luchasaurus. It would have been better if Jungle Boy just fell on him, broke the table that way. But it's immediately like made up for by the finish not being a pin, since it was like a pretty less impactful landing. I like that he did a snare trap for the submission win. Luchasaurus taps out. Jungle Boy wins the match. So yeah, top 3 spots of the match. Number 3 is the lawn dart. Number 2 is the destroyer. And number 1 is the finish. Awesome dive to the snare trap for the win. So honestly, this match could have been like a main event. I mean, if it wasn't for just the complete domination of Luchasaurus for the whole match, this would have been like up top. This would have been pay-per-view main event only, but uh, because of that, I'm gonna bring it down. It's like pay-per-view undercard. Story of the match was like sort of broken up with some unnecessary moves. Jungle Boy should have taken control after the big storyline spot with the slaps, but all in all, the match was really good. At least it should have been later on in the show. They should not have opened it with the way it was built and the way the match went. And I think this is the peak of the feud. It's hard to believe that the next one, like the final boss, is going to be Christian Cage. Because how the hell are you going to top this one? Christian Cage is not that athletic anymore. It might be a ladder match. It's his specialty, but Luchasaurus is younger. He's more athletic at this point. He's capable of like a built-in David versus Goliath story. And yeah, Christian Cage, I don't know how they're going to do it. He's probably going to do a lot of cheating. It might be slower. It might be less action-packed. A lot more like storytelling, if you want to call it that. Yeah, it's been a long time since I've seen Christian wrestle. But he's pretty well built. Like the story with him and Jungle Boy, the animosity is well built. And that's going to carry them through the last match between them. So yeah, great match. This opener like over-delivered. Again, it should have been later on. It's arguably better than the main event. So yeah, speaking of better than the main event, first half of the card fucking dwarfs the second half by so much. All the bangers are here, including this like first out of the best of 7 matches between Death Triangle and the Elite for the Trios Championship. I think this is a bit much. Maybe a best of 3 would have been okay. Seeing the same match over and over again does get old, unless some of those are like a couple of like minute squashes. There has to be like a lot of variety between them. And if they're just gonna do the same thing over and over and over again, like if they're actually gonna reach 7 matches, people aren't gonna react for like maybe the 5th or the 4th. This should have been like just a best of 3 or best of 5. 7's too much. This was a stupid decision that just makes the Elite look bad to its like already many detractors. For me, I'm gonna enjoy like maybe the first 3 matches, but they're gonna have to do a lot. They're gonna have to do like some unique shit, even have like maybe one of like strict rule adhering tag team matches, maybe go old school. Or what would be better is if they go for like this Anarchy in the Arena style match, if they go like Stadium Stampede, since they were involved in it last time. But yeah, best of 7 I think is too much for a lower tier championship. It's the Trios Championship. It's split into 3. Not very valuable. And as for the Elite's return, they enter with a licensed song, like a pretty popular licensed song. It's pretty much a banger. It's Carry On My Wayward Son by the band Kansas. It's their most popular song and it's like iconic. And I think this is just like a gift from Daddy Tony Khan to keep them happy after that incident with CM Punk. I think it works maybe once because of the shock value. I don't know how I'll feel about it if used every week. But yeah, it's an awesome song. The Elite do their entrance to this music very well. It gets like the whole crowd to like sing it. Everyone knows the lyrics. This is like such a unique thing with AEW. They don't have to censor their licensed music, and they can basically get any pop song or rock song or whatever. The match is what you expect from these two teams. The crowd are loud and on their feet for the whole thing for this like PWG style match. I think the best medium for like this style of match, if they want to make it feel more different, is like an NXT speed match or like an old NXT black and gold. Like those matches had the perfect pace. They gave the fans like some ample time to react, and it wasn't just like balls to the wall all the time. This like sort of PWG sort of match should be like done sparingly, maybe at the 7th one, like at like the final match where the Elite win the titles. Having this like right away sort of like sets the bar too high for yourself. And yeah, if this wasn't a best of 7, this would be okay, but having it be the first match and you're already like having it high effort, high intensity, very fast match. How the hell are you gonna top this? Honestly, even with stipulations. So yeah, match is high speed. We get some slowdowns, but we don't get that like prolonged pack headlock sort of rest hold spot. And I'm so relieved. Death Triangle are capable of more than that. And with the Elite on the other side, they can. They are allowed to. It's actually encouraged. So yeah, this match, I think the best way to like describe this is like it's a concentrated mixture of like superhuman action that you can't look away from. It's pretty unsustainable for other wrestlers, but the Elite are used to it and maybe not have this every time. But it's a great weapon to like bring the crowd into a match, bring the crowd back into the show. But God save the match that comes after this. Like, how do you top this? Why would you ever condemn a match to follow this one? And yeah, glad to see Kenny Omega back in full form. Young Bucks back in full form against their like favorite opponents. The natural rivals for the Young Bucks. The Lucha Bros. So as this is a show stealer, I'm just going to mention some of the awesome spots because that's the goal of the match. So Apron DDT by Matt Jackson to Rey Fenix. Avalanche Hurricane Rana to a pile outside. I think it was by Matt Jackson to Penta. Looked cool, but it was one of the more scripted parts of the match. Croyd's Neck Breaker by Kenny. Also have like an Indie Taker spoiled into like a triple tombstone pile driver. We have an elevated splash by Fenix atop Penta's shoulders, followed by like Penta jumping off Fenix to do a destroyer to Matt. That might be my favorite spot of the match. So leading to the finish, we have the main storytelling part. Pac hands the hammer to Fenix with Penta playing into this. Fenix rejects and is Tiger Drivered for his troubles. Actually even more. Pac doesn't give up on this. He doesn't give up on converting Fenix to his religion of hammerism. Pac takes things to his own hands. We get the interruption spots I fucking love. Pac in the end succeeds in handing Fenix the hammer. Kenny sets Fenix up in a one-winged angel. Fenix hits him in the head with the fucking hammer, gets the roll up, and the win. Fucking great match. Pay-per-view, undercard, to main event. So I've already watched Dynamite after recording this, and they do vary up the next match, which is awesome. But 7 matches is a lot, and the champion's gonna be crowned on January, so this could go any direction, but it's the Elite, so I trust them. Which is not someone should say about the actual Elite in the real world. So yeah, post-match is Fenix smiling about this, and it's a bit inconsistent to his character. Because in the match on Dynamite, he forgets he cheated, but then he reverts back to the goody two-shoes dude. I expressed my feelings about that in my Dynamite review, so just go watch that. So yeah, after this is Jade Cargill versus Nyla Rose. So the match that had to follow the Elite versus the Death Triangle was always going to suffer. And I think it's not fair for the women who already have a bad time getting over. Jade Cargill isn't the best in the ring, and then they have to follow a fucking banger level match. That's why like this should have opened, or Lethal versus Darby and Sting should have opened instead. Those ended up being pretty entertaining matches that would not have overshadowed like this one completely. That would not have completely drained the crowd. Because this match was actually okay. It was better than I expected actually. Nyla carried the match. She sold the shit for Jade. She took bumps that hurt my back watching. But Jade ended up winning in the end, despite Nyla being the more entertaining performer. But the bright side is that we're not gonna have Jade Cargill Women's Champion anytime soon. Like, Tony Khan's just salivating to put that title on Jade. She enters as Chitara from the Thundercats, and they wrestle a pretty slow match, too much downtime. And I don't like how the match goes on. I don't like that it was pretty much Jade beating the shit out of Nyla the whole way, but I like how she did it, because this was dubbed to be like a Battle of Titans sort of match, but instead, Jade Cargill ended up looking very fucking strong. They play with the weights. Jade Cargill sit down powerbombs Nyla. There's this stupid pin attempt after a failed move. I like the playing up to the storyline that Nyla is making fun of Jade, but eventually, of course, Jade wins, jaded on Nyla, with Vicky Guerrero just shouting her lungs out outside. TV main event match, Jade's best so far. Placement did not do it any favors. So after this is Jericho versus Guevara versus Castagnoli versus Danielson. So this was a fucking great match. This was, I think, my favorite match of the night. It has a lot of good action. I mean, it being a free-for-all, it should have. All four men were working as four dudes and not just like a 1v1. There was some good storytelling, but I don't know how to feel about the result. Since I think Danielson should have won this, since we've seen all what Jericho can do, it's getting a little bit stale. It's like turning into like just lateral progression. He's at the stage of his career that he can't carry a match by himself physically, but when paired with the right people, can still have bangers. Match had a good structure, so they start with alliances. The heel alliance lasts longer since they're less honorable. BCC stay true to their motto, their doctrine. It isn't very smart for the babyfaces, but it does work. It's honorable in a twisted sort of way. So they beat the shit out of each other. But of course, it's taken advantage of by the heels. So Les Ex Gods wrestle like a tag team at the start, but then slowly it sets up this feud between Jericho and Guevara throughout the match, and hopefully eventually between Sammy and Daniel Garcia. And yeah, Jericho hits an attitude adjustment. This popped me. They call it a Death Valley driver, which is not true. It's like a fireman carry slam, or an FU, or an attitude adjustment. So yeah, they start off as a cohesive unit, but as the match goes on, Jericho starts fucking over Sammy. When after Sammy hits the Spanish Fly, he sort of holds Danielson in place inadvertently, and then Jericho hits them both with a lion salt. He used Sammy as cannon fodder here. The alliance crumbles after an awesome spot where Claudio does a springboard move, and then Jericho hits him with a code breaker. Sammy starts challenging Jericho's authority. He starts challenging Jericho's commands. They come to blows, and then they just go all out. That was awesome storytelling. And then another great storytelling moment that confirms it. That confirms that Sammy's pretty much out, I think, hopefully. It just makes sense. If they backtrack this like Garcia, it would suck. It could have been the finish, honestly. And this is the spot that got the people on Sammy Guevara's side. They actually stopped booing him after this. After shitting on him for weeks, they love Sammy Guevara after this because he hits Jericho with a GTH and then a shooting star press near fall. This is too much. This is too much to kick out of. If it's just the GTH, it's okay, but with a shooting star press, Sammy should have won the belt. And then the moments just come right after another. Sammy mock elbows Danielson, he no-sells, then Nakajima slaps Sammy. Claudio throws Sammy outside to Jericho, and then Danielson Busaiku knees him, which takes him out. This also could have been the finish, and I think this was the more acceptable finish for me, was to have Danielson win. And then after an awesome Hart-esque encounter, Sammy steals the show again, avalanche cutter on Claudio, avalanche Spanish Fly on Danielson right after another. Sammy goes insane here, but it's countered to a label lock by Danielson. And then Jericho breaks this up. False finishes in the match were just fucking amazing. So well timed. Just like the sequence where Claudio tries to Irish whip Jericho into the corner, the corner outside the guardrail. Danielson does his apron knee, and then he catches Claudio instead and is neutralized by Sammy's shooting star to a standing opponent. So Sammy throws Claudio in the ring, springboard into an uppercut. Finish is as Claudio is doing a big swing. Jericho does a Judas effect on him. He sort of lands on Sammy, so it sort of hits both of them at the same time. This looked pretty awkward, and I'm glad that this didn't finish the match. He had to set up another one, which led to the pin. Jericho wins after pinning Claudio, who is revealed to be his next opponent for the pay-per-view on Dynamite, so hopefully Claudio will win. And Jericho wins. Yeah, pay-per-view main event match. This is a match of the year candidate, and it's the best match of the night so far. This is right up there. Maybe number 3 or number 4. The Elite Best of 7, the first match, was very good, but this one just hits harder. It's a lot less messy and like it feels like a conclusion to the feud. So after this is Britt Baker versus Saraya. This had all the anticipation, this had the storytelling, this had the star power. I expected this to be like not the best because Saraya's coming off like years out the ring, so she's expected to be rusty. So this didn't end up being the match we all wanted, but it was okay for a comeback match. She does like good selling with the neck injury. It's almost Danielson-esque, and she actually makes fun of this at the start. Thankfully, at least she's not injured. But I think it would have been better if she went serious like right at the start, just like selling the neck. She ends up winning in the end, and like I think there should have been a flash pin instead, because that's still Britt Baker, that's still the number one woman in the company. And Saraya just came back. So yeah, the neck working starts when Britt neck breakers her on the outside. That looked fucking disgusting. Followed by like working her in front of her brother. There are some awkward parts of the match, but they're not very noticeable. Saraya executes some pretty okay moves. She hit a nice apron crossbody, but her wrist hold lariats needed more oomph. A stupid spot was where Britt STO Saraya to the post, and it looks fake as fuck. And yeah, running theme of the match, Saraya needed a little more oof. The kickouts and the shoulder ups just didn't look convincing enough. Neck bumps made me cringe, and that's all I needed to get hooked. And yeah, I don't understand the negativity around this. It does get repetitive. They go for like the you hit one, you hit the next sort of progression instead of the you miss one and then you hit one. I prefer if like it's a struggle to hit the move. Then after a long time of trying, you actually hit it. Here they like just spam. They do a sunset flip powerbomb spot that's awkward as fuck because it hits. I mean, like, Saraya lands on her coccyx and it just hurt my ass watching. The finish is pretty King's Road. It's just Saraya hitting her finisher a couple of times for the win. So yeah, emotional finish, but she needs more reps. It's a TV main event, pay-per-view undercard match. Just the repetitiveness is what ruins the match for me. It's pretty good. And then after this is Wardlow versus Samoa Joe versus Powerhouse Hobbs. So yeah, another match that I think could have opened the show, since this was pretty boring, but I think given an excited, pumped up like crowd at the start of the show, I think this would have done a good job in like at least holding the place. It would have gotten pops because, of course, big dudes draw, as the old dudes would love it. This match certainly was a match of meat on meat, meat slapping meat. This is like Vince McMahon's wet dream, and for traditional wrestling folks as well. So if I would rank the three based on in-ring and on the mic, Samoa Joe is on top of both categories. Wardlow is the better in-ring worker, while Hobbs is better on the mic. So I love the winner of the match. This match had the most surprising result because Joe won. And I fucking like that Joe won. Let's not relegate this guy to like AEW dad yet. I believe he has a world title run still left in him. Plus, he's ROH TV champion. He'll be burying that title if he loses. So yeah, the match was shorter than I expected. It was hard hitting and like with a medium pace with moments of extreme athleticism and some sick spots like the whisper to the wind on both Hobbs and Joe. We also get like a swanton bomb where Wardlow hits all meat. So yeah, they have the crowd after the swanton bomb. Match unfortunately slows down, but thankfully it picks back up right away. Big pounce by Hobbs to Joe to the guardrail. So when I was watching this, I thought the match lasted for like 15 minutes total, but it ended up being like 9. It's just like pretty shallow of a match. But the ending was okay. So Wardlow hit Hobbs with the Powerbomb Symphony. Joe like attacks Wardlow, takes him out, hits him with a title on the back of the head, and then he steals the win. This is a smart finish, but it makes Joe look a little bit weak and also pretty smart. A smart fucking villain. It protects Wardlow and makes Hobbs look very strong that he had to like eat a finisher, actually 2 finishers, and one of them is like spamming power bombs. So yeah, this is a TV main event pay-per-view opener. I believe if we didn't see the better matches to start the show. This would have scored higher just by comparison. So yeah, let that be a lesson to you, AEW. Put the better matches in the middle of the show or like near the top, because people have already bought the pay-per-view. It's not like you're going after ratings. So yeah, after this is the Jericho promo. He sets up the match with Tomohiro Ishii. This is set up with Orange Cassidy. It also sets up Orange versus Hager on Dynamite, which is also a good match, but man, the Ishii versus Jericho match, also really good, but fucking repetitive as hell. They go for something that you're gonna have to watch my Dynamite review to find out. So yeah, after this is Darby Allin and Sting versus Jeff Jarrett and Jay Lethal. This should have been the first match, just like I said. It's a low stakes, low importance feud. That is more of like a car crash type of match, since we get fighting all over the arena. Start of the match was pretty gimmicky. We get like a distraction by Darby and Sting, and then Darby ambushes Lethal. Sting kicks Jarrett's ass in the ring. Jarrett is very cartoonish, which is awesome. The match then goes places because it's a no DQ match. It gets hard to watch, like as an audience member, if you're like in the arena, because they go their separate ways. You can't really see anything in the ring anymore. But for the crowd that can see it directly, like wherever they are, whatever level they're in at the stadium, it was pretty awesome. And as someone who's watching on TV or on the computer, I can appreciate it. So we get awesome spots like Darby doing like a coffin drop, and then Jarrett hits him with a guitar as he's doing this. Satnam catches Darby's coffin drop mid-air. Sting knocks Lethal off of the rails. Satnam catches him, and then Sting just dives on both of them. Best spot of the match. There's this bad botch where Darby and Lethal collide heads. That must have been bad. We also get Satnam destroying the shit out of Sting. And like the only problem of the match was like the rules, because it's a no DQ match. They can go wherever they want, so why not just make it a tornado tag team? Why even have the tags? That's pretty dumb. Sting and Darby finally have a double team move. They can go for the tag team titles now, because there's this spot where Sting goes for the Scorpion Death Drop, and at the same time Darby hits a coffin drop, so that's their new move. The finish is a bit botchy, but works. So lethal injection to a Scorpion Death Drop that goes continuously. And like it doesn't even like stop right there. I would have preferred if it stopped. It would have looked more awesome if like Sting managed to control Lethal. But it just happens like right away in like one fluid motion, Scorpion Death Drop. It doesn't even look like a Scorpion Death Drop anymore if it's not controlled. But yeah, Darby does the coffin drop to Jay for the win. TV main event, pay-per-view undercard. I enjoyed this more than expected for being like a low tier feud. It's pretty unimportant. It's pretty low stakes. It involves the TNA boys, so that's their plight right now. But yeah, I still believe that they should have opened the show. It would have done so with a bang. It would have kept the show more consistent. Would have pumped up the crowd more for the latter matches if this wasn't here. So yeah, next is Toni Storm versus Jamie Hayter. I've made my thoughts known about Toni Storm, but in this match she proved me wrong. Sadly, it's her last one with the title for now. I'm happy that she's like retroactively recognized as a women's champion. Thunder Rose has officially dropped the belt, but good job for the winner. And good job for the dude who decided to have Jamie win, because she had to. She's like the most over woman in the division, and she's homegrown. And the fight outside definitely helped. I liked the smashing onto the rails where we see Grimm's Toy Show. And then they, how do I say this, take their damn time with all of the showboating from Jamie. This might have also been the only match with actual like wrestling holds. They did like the lockups, the chin locks. Structure is actually pretty good. Better than the other women's matches. And there's like a gradual elevation of intensity without repetitiveness. And this one did not have like any of the awkwardness from other women's matches, like in all companies, except Impact. But yeah, the match picks up during a strike battle that ends with a headbutt by Toni. where she falls on Jamie, and when they get up, she's bleeding from the nose. And then the match picks up even more when the interferences happen. We get like a title shot to the head by Rebel, followed by a fireman's carry neck breaker to a near fall. And then Rebel just has to like shout her like, yeah, like her like that shit. Tony misses a sick hip attack and she takes an equally sick bump outside. But then Britt is right there, hits her with a curb stomp, and they're really protecting Tony here. They're hitting her with everything. But because the crowd love Jamie so much, they just react and root for her to win, and when she does, when Britt tries to remove the turnbuckle pad, Tony throws Jamie to Britt. Turnbuckle pad removed. Jamie Irish whips Tony to the turnbuckle that's exposed, head on steel, and then Rainmaker for the win. They made the right choice here. This was like, I think, the only pure storytelling match of the night. And despite not being a show stealer of women, this match manages to get the reactions that other women in the division seem to not be able to do. It's maybe the best AEW women's match we've had this year, but it's still no Masha versus Grace though. It's TV main event, pay-per-view undercard match. So after this is the Acclaimed versus Swerve in Our Glory. This is the rubber match for this feud, so match number 3. And this has to be the worst so far. Like, I don't know how they can top the first 2 matches. They were so good. They've set the bar too high for themselves that it was just inevitable for this to happen. But they do tease a lot and eventually have Swerve in Our Glory break up. Max does 2 raps, the first one being ultra political, but the second one being less serious. I like that one more. So Swerve enters like a scavenger from Cyberpunk with that like face thing. And the main story of the match is Anthony Bowens' injury. And he sells this so consistently, but not too much. It doesn't really go the NXT route, so it feels like a TV match, sadly. For me, this should have been like a stipulation match. Or this should have been faster at least. They also didn't do enough ring cutting, not enough tag interferences, keep away spots that would help build drama. It's just like the Starks versus Page match on Dynamite that you should watch my review. And the crowd doesn't much react on this. Top spot of the match is where Keith Lee saves Swerve from being put through the guardrail. But instead, Keith is flying crossbody to the guardrail, like leaned on the ring. And then this folds the ladder in half. They managed to get the crowd somewhat in the match, but when you do an execution-style triple swerve kick, and then the crowd doesn't react much, you know you fucked up. We get a tag team finisher spot by the Acclaimed. That could have easily been like a breakup spot, but they had to kick out of this. Then the climax of the match might have been like the moment of the night, but with what happens in the main event, as well as the similarities to Pac's Hammer, it's not up there. Maybe better than Pac's Hammer, but not better than the main event. Because Swerve hands Keith a set of bolt cutters, but Keith shows his quality. He rejects this, and then he leaves Swerve to die. The Acclaimed hit their weird new finisher, and then they win 1-2-3. So I like how the babyface in Keith Lee is the one who instigates the breakup. Usually it's the heel that beats up the babyface, and then the babyface gets pinned, but nice change in dynamic. This would have been a good TV main event, but it's a rubber match. It's a semi-main to a pay-per-view. If they added a couple of minutes and made the match more exciting, it would have been, I don't know, better than this. Whatever. This would have been like a pay-per-view undercard match, but this is just like TV main event. Pay-per-view opener is what I'll give if I'm generous. Yeah, not the best match of the night. And so finally, for the main event, Jon Moxley versus MJF, aka the most predictable match of the card, aka MJF's coronation. The crowd was split in 3 regarding the end of the match. It's either he stayed with the firm, he uses the firm as his tools to win the match, We can also get like MJF as a face, or MJF and Regal join forces. And I think this went the best and most interesting route. And I like that the firm don't go back with MJF, because that can give Ethan Page like a chance to increase his star power. It could increase his overness if he becomes the leader of the firm, and if they actually do stuff. So this match's story is just like all the hate and vitriol between the two guys culminate in the ring. It almost has the same grittiness that CM Punk and Jon Moxley had in their match. So first 5 minutes is all of the griminess, so all of the flip-offs, the spitting of Coke on Mox's face. The ball is right there, so that's why I knew it was Coke. It was mostly grounded, but the dynamic changes at 10 minutes where Mox becomes the heel. Even if MJF brings the table, people are like just cheering him. The match gains an element after the spot of the match candidate where MJF tombstones Mox on the apron. Mox then gets back at him with like a pile driver on the table outside that's set up. Count out spot. And then at 19, MJF enters the ring. And then he's paradigm shifted to the center of the earth for the near fall. And MJF selling here did enough, like get the crowd in. He goes the loud route. It's too exaggerated, but I guess it works. I prefer the like just falling down because of the pain and the exhaustion sort of selling. But yeah, top spot, aside from the ones mentioned, is an avalanche paradigm shift. And then the last part of the match is where the craziness happens. It gets a bit overbooked, and that's why it's not the best match of the night for me. So MJF pulls Remsburg into Mox's way, and then he's taken out. Mox gets MJF in a rear naked choke. They go back, and then they knock out the second ref, Paul Turner. Mox goes for the bulldog choke. MJF taps, so Mox protected. Regal is outside, like confronting MJF. He tells Mox to wake Remsburg up, but then he rolls brass knucks in the ring for MJF to use. MJF hits Mox with, what's it called again? The power of the punch for the win. 1, 2, 3. Good match, overbooked like most of MJF's matches, but hopefully it doesn't end this way like all the time. Or else I'm just watching William Regal. And I like that it frees the title up from like a plotting Mox match. He can have more varied stuff now. Plus other promo battles about other people. Next one in line is I think Ricky Starks. So that's going to be cool. Problem is that MJF can't really carry anyone like in the ring like by himself. He can with people he jives with. They end up creating magic like with Wheeler. But I don't know, because Starks and Page had like a pretty meh match. They really needed like a ring general. So yeah, I mean, hopefully the match is good. The promos are going to be fire. But the ball can always be dropped with Tony Khan. So yeah, looking forward to the possible title matches as well as the 1-year reign that we're going to get. He's going to lose the title to Kenny Omega or Hangman Page. Then he's going to disappear. He's going to pretend to go to the WWE. And then he's going to come back. For fuck's sake, please. So yeah, this was a great pay-per-view with a consistent quality of matches. I'm surprised that even the worst match of the night was okay, actually. And this might be AEW's best pay-per-view of the year. Ship has been righted. So yeah. I reviewed Dynamite first. Go watch that. Thank you for watching the video. Like, comment, and subscribe for engagement. Hit that bell notification for future videos. Share if you don't know me. And please, watch my shit. I still don't know what to review next, but stay tuned.